Thanks for joining me in today's video where I'll be making one of my favorite mushroom gravy recipes from cozypeachkitchen.com. This is a delicious whole food vegan recipe that our family loves and comes back to time and time again. This is the first time I'm making a triple batch of this recipe, so if you would like to make this recipe yourself, definitely check out the description box below where you can find the Pinterest post. Let's get into it first with the ingredients. One of the ingredients that stood out to me most was the rubbed sage and just how much flavor and scrumptiousness really that it brings to this recipe. This is also a great recipe for using up some leftovers or maybe foods that you're not getting around to eating fast enough. This time around I used 3 packs of pre-cut baby Bella mushrooms. I've got a little bit of soy sauce left, that's just enough to use in this recipe, half an onion that was in the fridge already, and some other very simple staple ingredients that you probably already have in your kitchen and pantry. The tools you're going to need are a measuring cup, a garlic mincer, cutting board, knife, and a big pot. All right, first we have to remove the kiddos' toys. Come on, little horsey, let's go. Oh, not this time. Okay, there we go. And then I gave the pot a quick rinse because, well, you know, kids kind of make a mess sometimes. Oh, and I almost forgot that Jade is going to need her kid-friendly nylon knife to help me chop up these mushrooms that are going into the pot. There we go. I highly recommend bringing kiddos into the kitchen as much as you can to help them prepare food. This is great for just developing motor skills and life skills. This is also a great way to incorporate homeschool lessons, especially for older children, doing things like fractions and measuring things out, but also just following instructions on a recipe and following your instruction as well. So we chopped up the mushrooms and the onion nice and fine. The mushrooms are a bit chunkier and they don't have to be super finely chopped. And as you'll see later in the video, I do like to blend a portion of this recipe so that we have a nice smooth gravy. Okay, I had to do extra simmering because this was such a big batch, which meant a little bit of extra tossing of the ingredients in the pot. So every few minutes I would set the timer, put the lid on, and then stir once the timer went off. I did this maybe 2 or 3 times since it was such a large batch and the mushrooms and the onions needed to be tossed more than if you were just doing like a single batch. Looks so good. All right, here I am putting in the garlic, and I'm so glad that I double checked what I was doing with the recipe because on the post I had clicked the button that multiplies the recipe times 3, but at points I was still doing the math in my head, multiplying what I saw on the ingredients list by 3. So I double checked just to make sure that I was adding in the right amount of soy sauce, the right amount of garlic, the right amount of flour, but I almost messed up this recipe, you guys. I almost just added in way too much of certain ingredients because I was doing the math in my head when it was already done for me on the Pinterest post. But here I am just doing a little bit more mixing, a little bit more stirring, making sure that the mushrooms and the onions all get a chance to sit on the bottom of the pot and get nice and caramelized. Ooh, I love that simmer, and it does start to smell so good in the house, especially once you start to add in the rubbed sage and the soy sauce. Once you get to this point and you're mixing in the flour, it's going to be thicker, more like a paste, so try to do this relatively quickly without letting it sit on the bottom of the pot for too long because, well, then it just starts to get caked on the bottom. Go ahead and add in your broth. Sometimes I do use a homemade vegetable stock. I like to use my scrap veggies, freeze them, and then once I have a big enough pile of that, I will boil it for several hours, and then I will keep it in the freezer once it's cooled. Once you've got all your ingredients here, it's going to simmer for a little while, and you'll want to do some regular stirring of the pot, just so things don't get stuck on the bottom. And you might find that you have to scrape it a little bit on the bottom, so I like using a rubber spatula for that, or I guess a silicone spatula. Okay, and right here the gravy is done, but before I blend it, I do like to keep a couple of portions of the thick chunky gravy because I do like mushrooms, but everyone in my family doesn't necessarily like mushrooms, so blending it up for them is a great idea. Plus, that's also a nice way to have some servings for pasta sauce, which is super tasty. And once I blend it, I do like to add a little bit of that blended gravy into the thick, chunkier gravy, just so it has a tad bit more creaminess to it as well. But it's a nice, thick, hearty gravy that can be used as sauces on a variety of dishes. So this is the final outcome. Once these cool, they are going into the freezer, and I hope you enjoy this recipe. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe, comment, like, and share. It's really motivating for me when you do so. And until next time, take care.